Bluff City Media presents Tigers Live with Francis Carlota. Join Francis after every Memphis Tiger game as he breaks down each matchup, player of the game, and upcoming games. Now, let's get to the show.
What's going on, everybody? It is Francis Carlota, host of Tigers Live for Bluff City Media. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to a full season of Tigers Live. I'm hello to everybody. Hello to those who were here with us last year. Hello to the new people who are here for the show for the first time. I hope everyone's doing really well on this Monday night. I know it's always good to have a post-game show after a big-time W, and that's exactly what we have. The Memphis Tigers beat the Missouri Tigers 83-75. I will be joined in a moment by Roman Cleary. As soon as I see Roman join the stream, I'll add him to the stage, and we'll chop it up, talk about the whole game, get his reactions, get his thoughts on the first half, get his thoughts on the second half and the roller coaster of that basketball game. And then after Roman leaves, we have a new segment for y'all. Something new. We will go live to the FedEx Forum and Penny Hardaway's post-game press conference. We will have the live feed. You will see it here on screen, and hopefully everything goes smoothly. But yeah, something new for y'all. For all the home games, we will have Penny Hardaway's live post-game press conference. And then after he's done with his press conference, say about maybe 10, 15 minutes of the press conference. Hopefully he's done by then. But if not, around 10, 15 minutes, we'll cut back to the show and I will talk about my thoughts on the game, my thoughts on Penny's press conference, the questions that were asked, the responses that he gave, and go from there and finish the show out, talk about the next game and go from there. As we have away games throughout the year, we will also have guests from all over Memphis media. Obviously, you'll have the tried and true from Bluff City Media, but we also will have some special guests as well who would be gracious enough to join Tigers Live, come on the show, talk Tigers basketball, talk about the game, and talk about the season as a whole. So we got a lot in store. We got a lot planned. This is our first full year, so it's exciting. I'm pumped. I'm excited to get the whole season started, and it's great, as I said before, to start the first episode on a win. 83-75 against Missouri. Like I said, once Roman comes in, we'll get his full thoughts and everything. But let's just get into it. The first half was abysmal. I'll put it to you all that way. The first half was pretty bad. The offense was sloppy. There was way too many transition buckets given up by the Memphis Tigers. And Missouri, though I wouldn't say they look like world beaters, they definitely are not at the level of North Carolina or Alabama that the Tigers face in the preseason. Missouri is not those teams by any stretch of the imagination. But at the same time, their athleticism, their length, their size really bothered Memphis, in my opinion. They really affected what Memphis wanted to do on the offensive side. And then on defense, they were able to get in transition, get out and run, and finish over what Memphis had, a lot of four-guard lineups. And Missouri was able to get in transition, finish over the top of a lot of moments in the game. And it just looked way too easy at the rim. I have some stats on the game. I have to pull it up all on the side. But I know in the first half, Missouri dominated the paint, dominated paint points. And I think a lot of that was predicated on the transition. I think Memphis in the half court did a solid job defending the ball, but the transition was where Missouri was able to execute and get those paint points. They also did a good job on the offensive glass when Musa Cisse would get his huge blocks, big time blocks. He would be left alone, and there would be the guards wouldn't be there to get the rebound because Memphis ran a lot of 4-guard lineups with Cisse or Danger as the lone big. And I think that hampered what Memphis wanted to do on the glass to a solid extent. But the second half was a totally different story. I don't know how many of y'all heard the Penny Hardaway's in between little, not press conference or nothing, but halftime interview with Greg Gasson and Trey Draper. And they asked Penny about his thoughts on the first half. What can we expect that'll be different going into the second half? And I do have the exact quote from Penny Hardaway, and so I don't want to misquote Penny. He said, "We're gonna do better against that zone. You can best believe that." And I made note of it because that's a pretty big statement to say, especially knowing how much Memphis struggled against the 2-3 zone, the 3-2 zone, the 1-3-1 zone, just all zones that can happen on a basketball floor. Memphis and Penny Hardaway struggled mightily. So I'm really happy to see that Penny backed up the talk. The team backed up Penny's talk, I should say. They executed very well against Missouri's 3-2, 2-3, sometimes a 1-3-1 zone. They did a great job getting either Jourdain or Colby Rogers sometimes even, or even trying to use Danger and Cisse when they had two bigs on the floor. They'd have one of them at the free throw line, somebody in the middle of the zone. And I made a note of all the moments that Memphis executed against the zone, and there was a lot of them. They did a great job against the zone in the second half, and I think that was a big reason why Memphis was able to get this big-time victory. Now, I do see that Roman has joined, so let me go ahead and add him to the stream.
Roman, hey, man. How you doing?
Doing well. Good to see you on an official episode of Tigers Live.
I apologize for taking a bit long to get down here. It was a bit longer than normal, but traffic associated with the first game, things like that. Fans were excited and what have you. So but we're here.
Yeah, absolutely. We are here, Roman. So talk to me, man. Give me your thoughts on the game. I talked a little bit about the first half and transitioned a little into the second half, but give me your overall thoughts on that performance from the Memphis Tigers.
I mean, talk about that defense that we saw from Memphis in the second half. 51-33 is your final for the second half score. That's how much Memphis dominated the final 20 minutes of play. 11 forced turnovers in that span. And, of course, second half Haggerty, how about him? He does it again. 22 points on 6 of 9 shooting. He also shot 9 of 9 from the free throw line in the final period. What an incredible talent Memphis has on its hands here. I mean, I understand that it's only been 2 exhibitions in 1 regular season game, but PJ Haggerty really seems to be a truly special individual that Penny Hardaway's brought into this program. And you don't have guys like him around that often if he is indeed what we think of him to be right now. And Memphis can go a long way, with someone like him in the fold for sure.
I absolutely agree. He is so good getting downhill into his spots. I think he led college in free throws last season, or was he second to Zach Edey? Something like that. Free throw attempts, he was one of the highest in the whole of college basketball. He is so good at getting downhill, drawing fouls. He's super crafty with how he uses his body, and I think he's the best playmaker on the team, without really any shadow of a doubt. He makes really good decisions. He keeps his head up when he does drive downhill, and he's good at finding cutters, finding the guy in the dunker spot, or kicking out to someone who's open in the corner. PJ Haggerty he's 100% the man. We'll talk about player of the game later, but to talk more about everything, Roman, in the second half, I noticed that Memphis did a really good job against the zone, whereas in the first half they didn't. And I thought the second half they executed a lot better offensively. What did you see that led to that massive Memphis run in the second half?
Well, I think, again, the turnovers have to, be the big contributing factor when you're talking about that big run. Of course, what was it, like an 11-0 run in the middle of the second half there that got Memphis back in front? And, yeah, I mean, they forced a lot of turnovers. I think 5 turnovers forced in the first 10 minutes of the half. And for what it's worth, they still didn't shoot great from 3 in the second half, but they shot a lot better than they did in the first. And it really just comes down to getting your 3-point shooters the ball in the correct spaces. Guys like Colby Rogers and PJ Carter, and from time to time, Tyrese Hunter and PJ Haggerty, they can both knock down a three every once in a while if
Right.
you give them the right opportunity to do so. I do think this team can become better from beyond the arc than what we're giving it credit for right now, but I think that's going to take a little bit of time. But at this point on, here on November 4th, if you can consistently have this kind of gritty defense, which I think is, quite, replicatable, if you will. That's not a real word, obviously, but
replicable.
Replicable. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The point being is that if Memphis can continuously apply this kind of pressure, especially later in the game, I think that'll do wonders for them, throughout, the coming weeks and months and whatever else. And I think if they can start finding ways to get Haggerty going earlier on in the game, they may not even have to, go through these types of comebacks consistently. I mean, obviously, you can't ask them to make double-digit comebacks every single night. They trailed by 14 points in the first half. Against a lot of teams, that's just not going to be good enough. You're not going to be able to, fight your way back in the game. We saw that against Alabama. But if Memphis can find a way to get more consistent offensively at the start of the game, which they obviously have plenty of time to do, I think this team, has a lot of potential to do some very good things.
Yeah, all awesome points. They were also down 13 with about 16-23 in the second half. So, big deficit in the first half and then still a 13-point deficit in the second that they turned around basically within the blink of an eye. To your point, though, about getting Haggerty involved more, that's something that I'm definitely looking out for in the early part of the season, because I know that there's a lot of mouths to feed on the roster, especially for the guards. Lots of talented guards on this Memphis roster, and you want to make sure that Tyrese Hunter gets involved, Colby, you want to make sure they get their touches, Koji as well. But I do think at the end of the day, PJ Haggerty should be the guy with the ball in his hands for the vast majority of the game.
Sorry, but you got to make Haggerty the point guard moving forward.
Yeah,
you got to make him the lead guard.
No, I 100% agree. You won't get an argument from me on that. But I'm just saying I recognize that it may not be as simple as just doing that, because you need to make sure the other guys get touches. It's still a long season. You don't want to overuse them this early. But I think especially when they get to the Maui Invitational, they have their first game against UConn. Roman, I think we both would be shocked if PJ Haggerty isn't the main guard for that game. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, you can't go down by 14 against UConn and expect to win.
Yeah.
Period. That you cannot afford that kind of start against a team of that caliber. You really can't afford having too many of these starts moving forward. But the fact that they were able to cultivate what was necessary to make the comeback tonight, again, it wouldn't have been good had Memphis lost this game. Yes, Mizzou is a quality opponent, and they are most likely going to be better than they were last season. I mean, heck, they didn't even win an SEC game last year, so it's almost impossible for Missouri to not be better this year. But still, Missouri is just 52nd at KenPom. You're telling me that Memphis can't beat a top 50 team at KenPom at home? Come on. The NCAA tournament teams, they just do that, period. They can beat teams outside of the top 50 in KenPom at home consistently. That's what Memphis did tonight. So
yeah, I agree. Let me ask you this: with obviously the news about Tyreek Smith that you were all on top of
throughout
the whole time. So talk to me, Roman, about the depth of the team now. Do you have any concerns about it?
It's natural to have concerns now. You're down to just really three real bodies in the front court, and those obviously being Musa, Cisse, Nick Jourdain, and Dane Danger. Cisse was, I think, the big standout tonight, though Jourdain could have had a pretty big game if not for the foul trouble that he had earlier on. But it's going to be really important moving forward to get Danger going on the offensive side. I mean, you need more than just Haggerty and Hunter, on some nights. They're not going to be able to, score 40 points combined, in a lot of games. You have to get Danger involved in there as well. He's your biggest offensive weapon in that front court. And now the pressure to do so is even more prevalent now that Tyreek Smith is no longer on the team.
Yeah, I think that, again, all great points. It's a thin front court, to say the very least, and it'll be interesting to see how Penny manages the minutes and the lineups throughout the time. Which is why I think I saw a lot of 4-guard lineups tonight. It was a lot of just one lone big and a lot of guards, which, played to the advantage, especially in the second half. They did a great job of pressuring the ball, active hands, using their quickness, their athleticism to really bother Missouri. I think Missouri had 3 turnovers in the first half, and then they finished with 13 or 14. I have to check the actual box score, but Memphis really turned the pressure up on Missouri. They finished with 14 turnovers. So, yeah, they really turned the pressure up. And so the 4-guard lineups worked, but you're not going to be able to do that all the time. But they also might not have a choice as well because of of how soft, not soft is the wrong word, how there just isn't a lot of depth in the front court. So did you have any concerns about the lineups that Penny sent out there?
I mean, you can't say you had like visible concerns with them because they won the game and they dominated Missouri in the second half. But, I do think there is – oh, excuse me, Penny's coming.
Okay. All right. Sounds good, Roman. I'll talk to you later. Peace, bro.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, so Penny is here. So I'm going to send us to a quick commercial break. And on the other side, you'll have Penny Hardaway live for his press conference.
No, I can fight and throw hands, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I can do that, you know what I'm saying? So I started saying, you know what, I want to get into boxing. And I just met a MMA coach, you know, and everybody call him UFC anyway, you know what I'm saying? So I just met an MMA coach. And basically, Brian Hall, bro, it's like once I started training, I found out how much I didn't know, bro. I'm always a person, I believe in the truth. It's like, what's the truth? I believe, if you say you're the truth, man, you know what I'm saying? What's the truth? And the truth was I couldn't fight at all. Zero. Zero, bro, at all. I say the first, 2 years with me just learn, processing how hard, how real it was and how, you know what I'm saying, nothing, you being angry, you feeling like everything you went through in the hood really mattered. You seeing people die, none of that mattered when I was grappling against this white kid that never knew nothing about the hood. He was choking me out. So I started saying,
Trevor had your
Tune in to The Anthony Sane Show, Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. weekly on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
All right. So I see the live feed at the bottom of my stream. Penny is not at the mic just yet, so let's hang on real tight, and I'll send this over to Penny Hardaway for his post-game press conference as soon as I see him walk up. But just to add on a little bit to what we were talking about the lineups, it'll just be really interesting moving forward to see how Penny uses this roster. I hope for development from Jared Harris. I hope for more from PJ Carter, who hit some really big threes today. PJ Carter was a big key part off the bench, hitting perimeter shots, spacing the floor for everybody. So it'll be interesting because it's just such a thin front court. That's the word I was looking for before. Thin front court, not soft. They're definitely not soft at all. Thin front court. And if Penny also wants to play fast at the same time. So the 4-guard lineups are not a bad thing. I just think it's going to be matchup dependent, and it'll just be something to look out for if as the season goes forward. It's we all know in this day and age of college basketball, it is a ever-changing landscape. Last season obviously had that pretty big time mid-season pickup, and we'll see what happens again this year. You can't rule anything out with how active Penny Hardaway is on the recruiting trail in the transfer portal. So it'll be very fascinating to see how Penny manages those lineups. But for tonight, the 4-guard lineups worked really well. They did a great job pressuring the ball. They forced Missouri into really uncomfortable situations, and they executed on the offensive side. I think when you play against a 2-3 zone or a 3-2 zone or a 1-3-1 zone as well, the 4-guard lineups are useful because you can have a more of a playmaker go into the middle of the zone and either create on his own, finish, and he can either create on his own, finish, or pass, find the cutter or find the guy on the perimeter. So it could work out in that regard as well. I like seeing Colby Rogers go middle. I liked seeing They put Jourdain in the middle as well. He showed some decent passing, playmaking ability. Heck, even Cisse made a couple nice, just easy passes to Haggerty as he cut. Same for Dane Danger. So I think the lineups and how flexible they can be and versatile they can be could also play an advantage when they face teams that are going to want to go zone against Memphis. I was told by the man himself, Kenny Stubblefield, that Missouri coach Dennis Gates will come on first. So when I see him go up to the stage, then again I will throw this to the FedEx Forum so we can get the live feed from the head coaches and their press conference. But yeah, I will send it to that as soon as I see him come up. Until then, though, it was I already talked about the second half a little bit, how they adjusted to the 2-3 zone. They started playing much more connected basketball. But as Roman said too, it really started on the defensive side, turning defense into offense. Memphis did a great job forcing turnovers off of Missouri, how disjointed they looked on the offensive side. And it was a really talented performance by those Memphis guards and how well they played on defense. I see Kenny on my screen. I don't know. Oh, sorry, y'all. This is all new. We're trying to make sure we get this figured out. I think it's about to start up soon. Sorry. Sorry to keep doing this to y'all. But yeah, I'll just keep going until I see someone go up onto the stage. Oops, sorry about that. Yeah, they're trying to get the devices connected and set up. But yeah, so let's quickly talk though about moment of the game as well. Kenny, I can go ahead and add you to this. Kenny, you tell me, should I add you or no? Mike and the camera live and set up. Okay, I'll go ahead and just kick this to the FedEx Forum, and hopefully Missouri coach Dennis Gates will be on in a moment, or Penny. I think it'll be Missouri coach Dennis Gates. So let me send this to the FedEx Forum, and I'll be back from the other side.
What's up, Coach? Coach Gates, can start with the opening statement before moving on to questions.
Great atmosphere for the tip-off of our college basketball season. Again, wanted to come on this road and kind of see what our barometer was. I thought our guys got off to a great start in that first half, but still wasn't able to capitalize on the mistakes that I thought we should have capitalized on early. And they did a great job cutting that lead that could have went to 15 or 17. They cut it down to 10. And obviously that momentum led into that second half, and ultimately the inability to execute offensively, meaning assist to turnover ratio was upside down, 4 assists, 11 turnovers in that second half, and obviously being able to not execute on that free throw line the way that I thought we shot the ball this week. We just wasn't able to put two halves together. And at the end of the day, Memphis was able to bounce back and execute and close the game out.
After the way that they played in the first half, specifically on offense, why did you choose to use Trent Pearson, Aiden Shaw so sparingly in the second half?
Just in terms of the momentum of the game, we ended up executing some things in that first half that I thought should have taken place in that second. But it's just the way the game goes sometime. I thought those two guys did give us good minutes, don't get me wrong. But also ball handling was more important in that second half because we ended up going with Ant Robinson and Tony Perkins at the same time. And that kind of didn't allow us to go with that same rotation.
You got Mike's asked for questions, by the way.
Microphone right there.
Yeah, Caleb, do you have one there?
Yeah. Did you feel with Aiden and Trent on the court in the first half, you weren't getting the ball handling?
No, Memphis wasn't pressing in the first half as much as they were in the second. That's the difference. It was two different games in that first half and the second half. That's what I meant by that.
Coach, when Josh Gray went to the bench in the second half with 4 fouls there, it seems like that's when Memphis' run kind of kick-started there. Just curious, what did that change, not having him for that part of the second half?
Josh Gray is an excellent, experienced player at this level. So that's leadership, that's experience down in the paint. I thought once we had to go small, I didn't really want to put Aiden Shaw and Mark Mitchell in the paint as much as I did, but that allowed more paint touches and less aggression, him having those 4 fouls. Hindsight, just go foul out and play more aggressive, and we'll deal with the rest. But we wasn't able to play aggressive, and I thought that is what in that second half set us back. In that first, I think they were in a bonus in the first 5 minutes of the second half, I believe. And when you put a team in that situation without reciprocation on the other end, it's just their aggression against ours. And Josh Gray's experience in that paint did not allow us to physically do the things that we wanted to do.
Hey, Coach, in the first half, you have PJ Haggerty only 3 points. How was he able to get down here in the second half?
Well, he was able to get to the free throw line and draw fouls. When you look at the stat sheet, I think he drew 5 fouls, and majority of them were shooting fouls. He led the country almost first in the country in free throw attempts last season. So that's what took place. You take those free throws away, he's at 10 points, but ultimately he attacks the paint. They did a good job. We didn't do a great job of, paint protection like we were in that first half. The second half, they were able to, execute because they got that ball to the paint. From the standpoint of setting up their press, they couldn't set up the press in the first half as much because the ball wasn't going in as easy. Think about make free throws. Think about made layups. That's where they now can set up that press that we spoke about earlier. And that's why I ended up putting certain guys in a lineup, because the ratio of inbound passes off dead balls and things like that increased for them dramatically. And that's just the analytics of it when you go back and watch the film.
Coach, when you talk about Memphis pressing, what do you want to see your guys do a better job of in those situations?
Just execute. They pressed a little bit, but again, we made it difficult because we took care of the basketball. We did not have any inbound turnovers in that first half. We ended up with only 3 turnovers, I think 11, 12 assists in that first half, but now 4 assists to 11 turnovers. And that's just the tell of the game. You can't do that and obviously have a team shoot that many free throws and execute at the rate that they executed at. And my hat's off to them for making their free throws. We didn't make ours. It's just that simple. The game is really occupied in about 3 stats: assist to turnover ratio, free throw percentages, right? Those 2 things, but ultimately paint points. They ended up executing in the paint in that second half more than we did.
Coach, you mentioned in the past the idea of turning losses into lessons.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some lessons that you want your team to take from this game?
The lesson, that's a good question. The lesson is this: endurance, the ability to complete those 2 things, that first half becoming now the second half, right? I think if we are able to continue to know each other and grow in the direction that we need to grow, we'll be able to put 2 halves together. And it doesn't mean, we're not going to make mistakes or play perfect. What it means is we're not going to be able to look at that scoreboard. We're not going to allow the crowd to get us off-centered a little bit. We'll be able to execute on that free throw line. Those small things matter. And the lessons is never overlooking the small things, the small categories. whether it's meeting the ball, meeting the pass, using a timeout, right? Versus just throwing the ball inbounds, those things. And, I got to do a better job of putting our guys in situations in practice. And I take this loss on my shoulders. I don't point fingers at our guys one bit at all. It is on Coach Gates. It's on myself. I am responsible for tonight's second half.
Coach, the theme for this team so far has been tough, discipline, disruptive. How did Anthony Robinson kind of embody that, specifically in the first half? And how did you keep him calm and locked in after his technical foul?
Well, the thing is, those plays like that, again, shouldn't happen. He made a great play and has been playing a great ball game. But again, the emotion is going to get to young student athletes in these environments. Ant is a good player. You guys saw what he was able to do tonight. But the thing is, the momentum switched when he got those. Believe he caught cramps in both his legs and got injured, and that kind of set him back a little bit. He's improved. He's been one of the most disruptive on-ball defenders. But again, as a young player, he has to continue to read the game the right way, continue to get better, and not allow those moments just because he made a three to turn around and get a technical foul, vice versa, or even just getting his team in a rhythm and getting more organized. But I thought he played a good game.
Coach, putting Memphis press aside, what did you make of your
Sorry about that, I was muted. Those are some comments from Missouri head coach Dennis Gates. I just wanted to make sure y'all could hear what his thoughts on the game were for just a brief moment before we get Penny Hardaway up for his press conference. That'll be on in just a few moments. I was told by Kenny Stubblefield that it would be Dennis Gates first, and then it would be Penny. So that is where we're at right now. Coach Gates is still doing his press conference, but yeah, just a few thoughts on what he said. He mentioned that Missouri couldn't capitalize on mistakes, and that was pretty interesting for me to hear, because I thought in the first half Missouri did a awesome job capitalizing on Memphis's turnovers. They had 12 points on 7 Memphis turnovers in the first half, and that's part of why they had such a dominating lead in the paint points. Because, I mean, if you get 12 layups or 12 points from layups, that's going to be paint points as well as transition and points off of turnovers. And I thought Missouri did a great job of capitalizing in the first half. But I do agree with Coach Gates that in the second half, the tides turned. It was a totally different thing. Missouri wasn't capitalizing on Memphis mistakes, whereas Memphis seemingly they capitalized on everything. Every mistake that Missouri had. Coach Gates also mentioned that they couldn't hit free throws. They couldn't put two halves together. And again, those are all very apt and fair things to point out for his team. They obviously couldn't put two halves together. Missouri got outscored by 18 points in the second half. So that was obviously a big reason why Memphis was able to come back and get a win, because Missouri was a totally different team in the second half. I see that they're about to get Penny up in just a second, so I will.
Okay.
Oh, I see him now. All right, I'll throw it to Penny Hardaway in the back form.
Terrible jacket, man. Terrible jacket.
you got? Good. All right. We'll let Coach make an opening statement, and then we'll take questions.
Man, great win. I thank God for this win. Proud of my team for making the adjustments at halftime and playing a great second half. Really proud of that second half.
In the back. Check.
You talked a lot in the last year about the identity that you want your teams to have. That second half, getting after it defensively, forcing turnovers, getting out the open floor. Does that kind of epitomize it to a team 1, 2, Is that tough to sustain, just kind of the energy level throughout a game, throughout a season?
Yeah, it's definitely what I was talking about when we went out in the after the season was over, the way that it ended, to go out and try to get toughness and defense. Guys that we knew that we could put in positions to win ball games on the defensive end and not worry about if the ball goes in or not. And that's who we want to be. And I'm getting back to my identity. Obviously, these guys haven't been doing it enough during games. They've been practicing, but the games are different. And but I was definitely proud of the effort in the second half.
I felt like the team grew into the game as the game progressed. How much do you feel like the chemistry was increased throughout this game, and how much do you think that'll help moving forward?
Yeah, there was none early, and then it did increase, like you said, the chemistry as the game went on. We made the adjustments at halftime, and it seemed like it was a new team in the second half. We did better in their zone. We saw the holes in their zone. We took advantage of that, and then we ramped the pressure up and got after them a lot harder in the second half.
This may be, a stupid question or whatever, but do you think like in a way the team maybe needed the start they had in the first half to kind of happen in order to, I guess.
I don't think that's a stupid question, but I don't think they needed it because we got our butts kicked in 2 exhibition games. I think that's enough. I think what they know now is that how much more serious practice has to be. Even though we pushed them hard, there is a little push back. And now these games are showing us that we got to be more prepared. We got to be tougher from the beginning. And sometimes as a coach, you like winning games that, you play a bad first half, you come out the second half and take over. So it definitely will help us.
Do you think you could have made this comeback if not for the experiences that you had in those exhibitions? Those caught you in some ways?
I would like to say yes, but I do know that experience of those 2 games, both second halves, especially the Alabama game, the way we got after them and trapped them, that's what we did the second half in this game. So the experiences from those exhibition games definitely, I think, helped us, with this game.
Coach, the first half was kind of frustrating. When you went to the locker room, what did you tell them? Because when you came out the second half, it's kind of they were lit on fire.
Yeah, it is. It is frustrating, man. When your hometown boos you, then you deserve it because they're seeing a product out there that's not competing. And that's all we talked about since we left Alabama was to have an attitude of being a competitor, going out there and fighting every minute. And we didn't do that the first half. At halftime, I just challenged them on doing the things that we've been taught and going out there and playing at a high level. And once we saw the adjustments on the zone, because the zone did hurt us in the first half, then it made it easier offensively because it just kind of was more fluid. And then defensively, that made us go harder.
Two-parter, because you just mentioned the boos. You guys heard some boos?
They were loud. And then, you know what? As a competitor, you look at that and go, "Hey, we're not playing well. Let's play better." Because I always challenge those guys that get your fans into the game early so that they're loud. They want to get loud and stay loud. You don't give the team that advantage. And that gives the team more confidence when they hear your fans kind of booing a little bit. So that's what we needed the most because now we know how real it really is here at home.
And then it seems pretty straightforward. You start making shots, your fortunes are going to turn around. But Coach Gates was in here earlier talking about you guys were afforded the opportunity to get into your press because you started making shots.
Yep.
They had to start taking the ball out of bounds
Yep.
and everything like that. So just sort of that not hidden, but like that aspect of the game had to be just even more important.
Yeah, it was.
Not only are you generating your own points, but you're able to get into the.
Well, the other thing that I told them before we left the locker room was that we had to get into the penalty early. And we got to 6 fouls within a couple minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. And then when we started getting on the line, we could set our defense. We started making jumpers. We started making layups, started throwing lobs. And every time they had to take the ball out, that was in our favor. So, yeah, I don't like our offense to start our defense. But in that second half, we started making shots so we could set up into our D.
Haggerty getting to the line, how critical is that aggressiveness? And how much is he just kind of a take it over or step up guy?
Yeah, that's very important in his game. He's been doing this since he's been at Tulsa, and he's brought that here. Second in free throw attempts behind Zach Edey, who was a dominant player last year as a point guard. And then he brought that here. So that's so vitally important for us. And teams are preparing for that, but he's so good at what he does. And we definitely need that. And what was the second part?
Just his aggressiveness.
Oh, yeah. PJ's an aggressive. He's a quiet spirit, but he plays aggressively. And once he gets going, man, he's pretty dang good.
Coach, right here. Musa said he came off the bench, 14 points, 7 boards, 19 minutes. Can you talk about the impact that he had, and especially with him being a leader?
Yeah, Musa in this last year, he wants to win so badly because he's never made the NCAA tournament. And his effort shows that. And coming off the bench or starting, he's going to give you that same effort. And it's been big for us because he and Dane, to me, are the best front court in the country. And those guys are really good. And Musa, he's locked in because he's been here before, and he wants to win this last year.
Coach, what do you think of your half-court offense tonight? What was good? What can be better?
Yeah, well, they mixed it up. In the first half, it was poor because we were too stagnant. We didn't get the zone moving the way that we should have. And then when we saw the gaps in the second half, we did. What we did well in the first half was we got open looks and just didn't make them. And what we did poorly in the zone in the first half was we turned the ball over. Second half, we executed better because we knew what we wanted. And we looked like a well-oiled machine in the second half on that zone. And then whenever they went man, I think we scored almost every time besides a couple of turnovers on man. So it got better as the game went on.
Terry. Hey, Coach, for the third game in a row that PJ Hardaway always starts off really, really slow, and he has a great second half. What can you do to make sure he have 40 minutes of good basketball? Even though the 20 is great, I know you want 40 good minutes out of him.
Yeah, I think he's still, it's not going to take a few months for him to get out of his habits that he had at Tulsa. He's still getting used to me. He's still getting used to the team. He's still getting used to the system. But he's able to just, I guess, as the game goes, see where his spots are, where he can pick to go, to do his thing. And I hope sooner than later that he picks up earlier than in the second half. But he's smart enough to start understanding how teams are going to play him, and then he starts to figure it out.
Hey, follow up on PJ. Obviously, the defense doing the offense is great, but late games, you need someone that can just go get a bucket in some situation. Do you feel like, given his pedigree and what he's done with you guys over the summer, he's already established himself as that guy for you late games? Yeah, for sure. And we have a ton of guys on the team that I feel like they could grow into that role. But right now, he's the guy. He's the guy that you can get him the ball. He's going to make his free throws. He's going to make a good decision, and he can make a shot. So he's definitely the guy right now.
With Dane and Musa both having great games tonight in different ways in some ways, and I know they played on the court, gave them Missouri troubles with that Twin Tower set. Is that how you expect to play them moving forward? Or are you thinking about continuing to bring Musa off the bench with Dane starting? What does that look like?
Right now it's hard to change it, but you just never know what happens from game to game. But yeah, I look to play those towers together because they're both so good at what they do. And I've been working them together during practice. So more time with that, the better it's going to get. So I like those two guys being in and trying to go at the smaller guy, because it's going to be a smaller guy guarding one or the other. So I like that advantage for us.
Last two for Coach Jason and Tyreek not with you anymore.
Yeah.
How does that maybe change your rotation? And then have you already started looking for something?
Well, it changes our rotation because he was in the rotation. Obviously, that puts more pressure on Nick at that position because, there was another 4-man that was there. But, we're building to be better. And you can never say never on looking for, replacements or people out there that can come in and help us out in December.
Penny, I know you said a little bit on pregame radio, but how much can you share about what happened with Tyreek's situation, and how's your team handled the last 2 weeks in that whole saga? Yeah,
we respect Tyreek's decision, to move on. You just have to respect that. I love Tyreek. He and I will always stay in touch. You just have to respect that. We wish him well and want him to do well. He's still going to be friends with these guys for the rest of his life. And it really wasn't a distraction to us because, they know that this is the side that can happen. It can happen. So we just all wish him well. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach. We're in the locker room now, right?
Okay, great. Yeah, so that was Penny Hardaway live with his post-game press conference. Wow, I mean, he a lot of the things that were touched on were things that we had discussed in the early part of the show. Let me just keep going through what he discussed. First of all, opening statement, they made halftime adjustments. He's very proud of the second half that the team put out, and that was a huge. I think we all noticed the halftime adjustments pretty immediately. He also mentioned how he told the team out of the locker room to try and get Missouri into the bonus really quickly out of the second half. And as you all saw, that's exactly what happened. Memphis got Missouri into the bonus, or hopefully I'm phrasing that correctly. But either way, Memphis was going to the free throw line because they were in the bonus really early on. With about, I think, 16 minutes or so, they're already in the bonus. And that really changed how the second half was done. Penny talked about how in setting up the defense is going to be very important for the team throughout the entire season. And a lot of that is on makes. Obviously, you make a basket, the other team has to inbound the ball, and it allows you to set your full court press. So that's one. Two, if you get to the free throw line early, then you make free throws, same thing. The ball will stop. The other team will have to inbound and go the whole entire length of the court to score a basket. So that's another way to make sure that the press gets set up. And so it was cool to hear Penny talk about those points of emphasis, and discuss what we all kind of noticed throughout the game. But it was cool to hear him talk about it in more detail in that regard. I love the questions about the comeback. He mentioned that the Alabama comeback was helpful. Like, though they didn't beat Alabama, they were still able to show some grit, some toughness, some strength, some resolve in order to come back and make it a game against the number 2 team in all of college basketball. And they really showed their own. They held their own on that exhibition floor against Bama. And I do think that was a good foreshadowing for this type of comeback. It was interesting to hear him talking about the boos from the crowd. I heard the boos. I don't know if you all heard the boos when you were watching the game, but I heard them early on. They were pretty clear to me that the fans were not happy with how the first half was going, especially when Missouri went up to that double-digit lead and Memphis kind of looked like they were lost. The issues with turnovers, the struggles that they had in the exhibition games were still there for the first half of the game against Missouri. And it was cool to hear Penny tell the guys that he wants to challenge the guys to get the fans going early. And if Memphis can get the crowd behind them off the bat, you and I know, we know how great that FedEx Forum crowd can be. I mean, just think back to their games against Houston, against FAU, their big games against Alabama a couple years ago. We know that place can get absolutely rocking. And if they can generate that momentum early on in the game, then I think that'll be a huge part of holding down the home court for the rest of the year. As Penny kept going, he emphasized getting into the penalty early. Just to elaborate a bit on that as well. I talked about how I loved seeing defense turn into offense in the second half. But to hear Penny talk about it more in his post-game press conference made me realize that it's more of a reciprocal relationship between the offense and the defense. Obviously, defense turning to offense is really good, but the offense being able to execute in the half court and get buckets, being able to get to the free throw line and make your free throws, that also allows Memphis to be good on the defensive side too. So it's not just a defense turning into offense type thing for this Memphis Tigers team. It truly is, from just one game, one official game, it truly is a reciprocal relationship between the offense and the defense. They'll feed off of each other. And I think that'll be a huge point of emphasis for the rest of the year. I loved his comments about PJ, how aggressive PJ was in the second half. He even talked about what me and Roman talked about in the first part of the show, how we can get PJ Haggerty to be effective throughout the entire 40 minutes, and him saying that PJ is still getting used to Penny Hardaway as a coach, to the team, to the system that Penny Hardaway runs. And once PJ gets going, he'll find his spots. And Penny hopes that PJ can pick things up earlier than just the second half, but PJ's a smart guy. He's an incredibly smart basketball player. And I think it'll be interesting to see PJ Haggerty's load, his on-ball load, ramp up as the year goes on. This isn't breaking news. Memphis will face the two-time national champion UConn Huskies in just a couple weeks in Maui, in the first game of the Maui Invitational. And y'all, Memphis can't, like Roman said, Memphis can't afford that first half performance against UConn. Nope. And Memphis can't afford to not have PJ Haggerty be the main ball handler throughout really the majority of the game. If PJ Haggerty's on the floor, I don't want anyone else making decisions on offense. You know, Tyrese Hunter had some moments where he was able to get downhill, but his playmaking, he hasn't shown it to me yet that I can trust his playmaking ability. He's obviously quick twitch. He can get downhill. He hit a couple big threes. He had some really important layups and finishes at the rim. But in terms of playmaking, I want it to be PJ Haggerty. So it was cool to hear Penny talk about that as well. And then two more things, and we'll get out of here. Penny Hardaway said that Musa Cisse and Dane Danger are the best front court in the entire country. That's high praise. That is very, very high praise. I think the performance we got from Musa Cisse tonight is definitely repeatable. He can do what he just did on a nightly basis with his finishes at the rim, with his slam dunks, his energy, his defense, his rebounding, him just being an absolute athletic specimen on the floor. You're gonna be hard pressed to find somebody as athletic on the same court as Musa Cisse, top to bottom. So it's definitely repeatable. And Danger had a good game. I don't think he had a great game, but I think he had a good game, and I'm excited to see what more he can provide, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But that's some high praise from Penny to state that that's the best front court in the entire nation. Let's see. If that somehow turns out to be the case, then Memphis could go a long way this entire year. He also closed his whole press conference talking about Tyreek Smith. He talked about the rotations that me and Roman talked about in the beginning of the show as well. A lot of pressure on Nick Jourdain. Obviously, he's going to be a very integral part for the entire year. But I'm a big Nick Jourdain guy, and so I have full faith in his ability to carry the load that's going to be needed with no Tyreek Smith in the front court. But yeah, overall, Penny's comments were very positive, very supportive of his guys. I mean, obviously, it just came out after a really big win, so I expect nothing less. Now it'll be interesting to see the Penny Hardaway press conference after a loss, especially a loss that they shouldn't have. And while I hope Memphis wins every single game for the rest of the year, we know a moment like that will happen. So it'll be very interesting to hear Penny's comments post game live here on Tigers Live throughout the rest of the home games that we have for y'all for this season. So yeah, that's our show. Saturday, Memphis will face UNLV at the Thompson Mack Center in Las Vegas. I will hopefully be on the show. at some point. I might not be, and the reason being is because I will be at the game for Bluff City Media at Memphis versus UNLV, and I'm excited. I'm super pumped. It's going to be a great time to see the team up close and personal, and hopefully Memphis can go into Las Vegas and get a big time W. So until next time, everybody, peace. Much love for all of you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Tigers Live. If you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. For comprehensive coverage of all things Memphis sports, head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co and find out how you can become an insider. We will see you back here next time.